Yo guys, what is going on? JPS back for another video, and today we're going to be reacting to History Matters. Why did Britain abolish slavery? And obviously this is going to be an animated documentary. It's a short one, so let's get right into this. If you guys are new here, hit that like button, hit subscribe, and let's go. I've reacted to content regarding the abolition of slavery in the past and also regarding Britain's involvement in that. But I thought it would be cool to check out this little animated documentary. One of you guys sent this in on Patreon, so shout out to you. But yeah, let's get right into this.
The abolition of slavery and the slave trade is often cited as one of the proudest moments in British history. Britain certainly wasn't the first nation.
Wait. Let's go back. Okay, things we did. Abolishing slavery, beating the French, largest empire, inventing industry, beating the Germans, borrowing Ireland, inventing gravity, inventing capitalism. That's funny. But yeah, it is.
History. Britain certainly wasn't the first nation to abolish it, nor would it be the last, but Britain's abolition was followed by a concerted effort to end it worldwide. In 1772, an English court declared that standing on English soil automatically made a man free because Parliament had never gone to the effort to introduce slavery legally. Across the empire, the slave trade was abolished in 1807, but not the institution of slavery itself. This meant that people could continue to own slaves, but generally couldn't buy or sell them. The owning of slaves itself was outlawed throughout the British Empire in 1833, with the exception of India and a few other territories. This, notably, came at an incredible cost to the British Treasury, since they opted to pay the slave owners for their lost revenues. In fact, the British government got into so much debt for this that the loan taken out by Prime Minister Viscount Melbourne wasn't paid off until the premiership of David Cameron in 2015. If slavery was still incredibly lucrative, why did Britain not only end it, but place itself into a mountain of debt whilst also further committing to end it globally? Now, there were many reasons, but the first is perhaps the most obvious. It was seen as being morally abhorrent. Famous abolitionists such as William Wilberforce or Henry Thornton argued that Britain had a special duty as a Christian empire to end slavery throughout the world. Another reason for ending slavery throughout the British Empire was purely economic. Whilst the slave trade was profitable, slavery itself, particularly that in the Caribbean sugar plantations, was becoming less so. Furthermore, most of the empire's money was now being made in China and India. I mean, why sell people to the Caribbean when you can simply sell drugs to the Chinese instead? The final reason was political. In the late...
Wow, that's hitting a little hard. Jeez. That's very true, but he said it so bluntly. I wasn't ready. Wow.
Furthermore, most of the empire's money was now being made in China and India. I mean, why sell people to the Caribbean when you can simply sell drugs to the Chinese instead? The final reason was political. In the late 18th century, there had been a large colonial lobby in Parliament who sought to have the interests of slave owners taken into account. With the American Revolution out of the way, the number of slaves and slave owners in the empire was now halved, and so who cared what they thought anymore? After the formal abolition, Britain committed the Royal Navy to patrolling the Atlantic Ocean to end the slave trade for everyone, irrespective of whether or not they wanted to. So just because slavery had been abolished, that didn't mean that things improved immediately for the recently freed. Most either continued working on plantations for poor wages or were simply left to starve. That said, some efforts were made to take former slaves to Sierra Leone, one of the many African colonies set up to take former slaves. Furthermore, Britain was pursuing free trade during parts of the 19th century, which meant that for many years Britons were still buying sugar from slave plantations, not to mention cotton from places like the American South. British India continued to use a system of near slavery called indenturing until 1860, and the empire profited massively from these practices. Britain undoubtedly had a large hand in ending the global slave trade and dedicated a colossal amount of money and effort towards doing so. Britain had given up on the slave trade, but that didn't mean it no longer profited from slavery, at least in the short term. The difficulty of this topic comes from weighing up the value of Britain being at the forefront of abolitionism against the fact that over the centuries it was responsible for the sale of over 3 million people. I hope you enjoyed this episode and thank you for watching, and a special thanks to all of these patrons you see on screen for their generosity in supporting the show, and a particularly special thanks to James Bisonet.
Yo, I really like that guy. He took into account both perspectives and put it into a short and sweet video that was very entertaining and didn't lose my attention at any point. That's how a good video is supposed to be. So yeah, let me know what you guys think of that video in the comments. I don't really need to go into depth on anything he talked about. I agree with everything he said, and I had known about everything he said. We reacted to the ships that the British ships of the Royal Navy that sat on the west coast of Africa and used to intercept slave ships, which was pretty awesome. But then again, there's also the other side of it where regardless of you abolishing slavery, you're still profiting off slavery. So but yeah, nonetheless, taking out that loan and, you know, trying to abolish slavery, just doing that, it shows that it was definitely due to like the morality of it rather than just doing it for profit because you're losing money. But yeah, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.